Hi everyone. Today I'm going to talk about the assumptions that we all have that most of us take for granted or are completely unaware of. So I want to begin with the common theme of atheism that we see around. And when people start to, you ask them, why are you an atheist? They say, oh, because I base my knowledge on truth and facts, evidence. Like that does something to make them different from all other religions, the fact that they have those, that they base their knowledge on those things. But one thing I like to point out is, yes, you're an empiricist. You base your knowledge on the empirical facts of the world, empirical evidence of the world. But I ask you, what empirical evidence gives you or supports empiricism? And think about it for a second and realize it's impossible. It's impossible to have empirical evidence which supports empiricism. And then you take a step out and you realize that empiricism, the scientific method, is an intuitive choice. It's something you choose, and then you say, I think, I feel, I believe that this is the best way to do things, the best way to search for knowledge. Now, I agree. I think it is the best way we have right now. So I'm not downing science. I love science. I'm using science to record what we're doing right now. But we need to understand that we have an assumption that science is truth. And it's not, in the sense that you cannot have any support for the system itself. You can't have an empirical evidence to support the empiricism. The choice you make to do science, the choice you make to do empirical investigations, that choice you make is done out of intuition. It almost can be seen as faith, because you have no way of knowing if that way is the right way. You just feel intuitively that that way would be the best way. And so, to give an example of science and its roots and how we came to the intuitive decision to choose that over the dogma of the church. Back before the scientific revolution, here's the example, by the way. Back before the scientific revolution, we had the search for knowledge being only known through the Bible. When people said, I want to know the truth about something, they were given the Bible or told to go to the Bible or works relating to the Bible. The only other current of religious thought, which can also be seen as thought for knowledge, because religion is basically a search for knowledge and truth, just like science is. The only other stream of thought that wasn't the church was something called Hermeticism. Hermeticism was a occult, meaning hidden, or unveiled, or veiled, tradition of practices which one would call religious, but they had a peculiar aspect to them which made them very different from the church and Bible. Hermeticism, and its many forms, which include alchemy, which is what most of us are familiar with, has as a procedure, when a person wants to know the truth of something, instead of going directly to a book and being told in a book, they are referred again to literature or a book, but instead of telling them to take the book as truth, they are encouraged to read the book and understand it, and then try out what was done in the book by the people in the book and try it out for themselves to see if it works for them. Doesn't this sound familiar? This is much like science journals. When someone publishes a scientific work, before they have to publish, they have to look at the literature beforehand, see how people did their thing, and do it in that way. Maybe a little different way, but it's still the same kind of procedure. And then they do it and test it out and see if it works. And that's the same idea with the Hermetic tradition. And a good example is alchemy, where you have the philosopher looking for the philosopher's stone by doing experiments, by trying to turn lead into gold. So as I was saying, the only other current was this current of Hermeticism. Now, we can see how it had its experimental seeds, the seeds of experimental empiricism in them, especially alchemy, where alchemy was looking for an immortality through doing experiments instead of believing in God. So we can see that when the Renaissance came, and then later the scientific revolution came, we would have to owe it to the tradition of the Hermeticism and alchemy, because without it, there would be no alternative to turn to when going against the church. Basically, it was the Hermetic tradition which kept alive the scientific and empirical inquiry, which dates back all the way to the Greeks with Aristotle and back before him as well, which the church, the Catholic Church, shunned in the so-called Dark Ages and kept them away until the Renaissance and the scientific revolution. So what I'm trying to say here is, without the tradition of Hermeticism, the Western man and Western woman would have no alternative to turn to in the search for knowledge outside of the church. And we have to also owe it again that it had empirical concerns which led to what we call today science. And it's easy to see how alchemy becomes chemistry, and many alchemical tools like beakers, and glass tubes, and Bunsen burners, or things that resemble Bunsen burners, are pretty much carried over into the realm of the chemist lab or the science lab. So, it's very clear to see how what we hold to be true, or what we think is the basis of truth, scientific inquiry, empiricism, whatever scientists say, really is only our assumption at the heart. Because when we choose to say, I want to believe in science, then we're making that intuitive choice. Now, if someone wants to say, oh no, I believe in science because I got airplanes and big screen TVs, well, is that really truth? Those are just material things, lights and bells and whistles. And so if you're saying that some campus, some authority is truth only because they give you goodies, you have to rethink that. Is it really true? Because I can tell lies all day, but if I give you stuff, that doesn't make me true, or what I say true. Now, again, I'm not trying to downplay science. I think science is the best thing we have right now, or one of the best things. But I do think we need to understand that it's an intuitive choice. And so when scientists, especially in the new atheist movement, want to downplay religion, they have to think twice, because they themselves are a form of religion, in the sense that they intuitively created a belief system called empirical science and investigations, and decided that's the way we want to take knowledge from the world. We feel that benefits us the most. And it has, but it's still an intuitive choice. Now, to end this talk here, I want to bring us all the way to the idea of the philosopher. And common everywhere today, someone says, oh, he's just a philosopher, in the sense that you're just making stuff up. You're just philosophizing. Well, at the basis of science is philosophy. That's why all scientific instruments before the 1700s were called, or the 1800s were called, instruments of natural philosophy. Every belief system, every kind of way of doing things, of going about and going through the world, is a philosophy. Everyone has the ideas of what is the good life, what needs to be true, what's important, what's valued, and these are all philosophies. They may not be the wordy jargon that we see in today's analytic philosophy, or in most academic philosophy, but nevertheless, it is still philosophy. And, we need to understand that. I think that's very important. And it gives us a glimpse and an understanding into how we come and create and use our beliefs and our knowledge. And, like Alan Watts said, we have free will to the extent that we know ourselves, And so the more we know ourselves, the freer we are. And this is part of knowing ourselves, by knowing that the choice of science and empiricism is an intuitive choice, and that it has its roots in alchemy and the Hermetic tradition. Even reason, I'm sorry to add information, but even reason has its roots in airy-fairy nonsense. Because Aristotle, who laid the foundation work for reason, got it from Socrates. And Socrates got reason from what he called the demon in his head, which caused him or pushed him to ask questions to people. Ask questions. Why do you believe this? Why do you believe this? So what I'm trying to say here is what we think is nice and clear-cut science is really an intuitive choice, but it's the best one we have. And I can never prove that. I can never prove that it's the best, but I feel it's the best. And